Yeah, so, hey everybody, I'm Ty Tuesday, and joining me today is Sly09, who you may remember from other Magic the Gathering and Eternal and Pokemon card game and Slay the Spire and
just say every card game at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, and Netrunner.
That's me. That's the one I played. I was world champion of that game. I'm not going to bury the lead on that one this
Thanks,
time.
I appreciate that. Let's just cut the chase on this one. And we're joined by Kobuddy.
Hello.
Hey, and so you mentioned when you were having us evaluate Universe's cards that you've never played Magic.
Nope, never touched the game.
Which is incredible. You have, however, played, and this is worth mentioning, you've played Yu-Gi-Oh!, you've played Universes, obviously. Yes. And you have played Eternal, which is...
Eternal, Hearthstone, Pokemon.
Okay. So a lot of them, just not Magic. Okay, interesting. Yeah. A fascinating perspective.
It is funny because, yeah, I've played a lot of card games. Magic is like my main blind spot, amazingly.
There's this huge void out there around it. Interesting.
All right. So... I figure we should start with some ones that will give you an idea of about where Magic levels power goes, because since you've played multiple games, you know in some game, like, just draw one, do one thing is crazy good, and in some card games like Pokemon, it needs to be like, draw 7, also put a guy on the field, also attach an energy from the discard pile to a guy, also, like, Shaman EX shows up and gives you a kiss on the cheek and tells you you're doing great.
If I'm playing blue, why would I never run this card? This just seems... I mean, it's draw 3 for 1. Like, that just seems amazing.
Yeah, we don't need to beat around the bush here. This is possibly the greatest spell ever printed in Magic. It is, like, in contest. All right. You might have heard of this one. So this is Black Lotus.
So, yeah, you might know this one. So
I have in fact heard of this one.
What do you think about Black Lotus? What strikes you?
Well, the fact that it costs 0 mana immediately.
You sacrifice it though. Think about that.
Oh, who gives it?
You have to sacrifice it, so you can only use it once. How good could it be?
Oh. Yeah, and you can totally. You can play 4 of these, can't you?
Well, you can't play this in anything but war.
No,
you can't play this in any format.
No, this motherfucker is restricted or banned in every format. Yeah, I think there's like, Vintage you're allowed 1, and that's it.
Yes, you in Vintage, the oldest format of Magic.
Vintage,
does not have
the Flex Nuts format, the look I own multiple $500+ card format.
Suspend 3. And cost this card from your hand, pays 0 and exile with 3 times on.
So basically, you banish it for 3 turns.
Yeah.
And then your upkeep is the start of your turn, so it'll count down.
And it is very, very hard to cheat extra upkeeps for what it's worth. Like, there's a very tiny handful full of cards, and I don't know if I would consider any of them competitive playable.
I mean, this seems worse than Black Lotus, but still, like, good. I think you'd still want to play this, considering even though it takes 3 turns to get going, I won't win you the game right at the start. It still ramps you when it casts.
Yeah, $20 is still $20. This thing's still crazy.
Yeah.
Black Lotus, you play in literally everything. This you play in decks that it's like, your life ends 30 minutes from now. But in those decks, this comes down on turn 1 and your life ends 30 minutes from now. Like,
sacrifice lines on a diamond, discard your hand, add 3 mana.
Yeah, pretty rough, huh?
This seems pretty bad. Getting the mana is nice, but you're forced to top deck until you draw a card. And I don't... Considering Ancestral Recall was nuts, and it draws 3, I have to assume draw is usually relegated to 1 or 2. Yeah, no, this card's ass.
So this card's restricted in Vintage.
This card's absolutely
Really?
insane.
This
It costs
card- this card is-
$500.
Yeah, this card is like. This card is wildly busted in the decks that it's playable. Nothing replaces it in those decks.
Fair enough.
All right.
I guess I should have thought about how much. I'm beginning to see a theme with what you're showing me.
Yeah. I kind of want to see if you can figure out where's the line for a Lotus to be bad.
Now, one thing I am seeing.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
When Lowe's Field enters the battlefield and sacrifice 2 lands.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you play this as your first land, do you have to sacrifice anything?
Correct. It has to eat itself. Yeah.
It will have to eat
Okay,
itself.
it does
if you
have
play
to
this
eat
on one.
itself. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not. You can't like trick it by only controlling one. You gotta eat it.
I feel like this is like it's playable, but not like amazing. Would be my read of it.
So this card's a menace. This card.
God damn it!
Yeah. This card's
So
a
the big
menace in the
thing about
format
this
it's
card
in.
the big thing that makes this card a menace in the formats that it's in is that there are ways to untap the land that cost less than 3 mana.
Fair.
And if you have ways to do that, you can start generating wild amounts of mana in order to kill your opponent in some sort of combo.
We went from a whole Lotus Field, which is a reusable 3 of that was just very expensive, to a Lotus Petal, which is only pequeño.
Tiny.
Yeah, it's only 1, huh?
Only 1, and it does cost 1 of the cards in your hand, which is an easy cost to forget about, unless you played a lot of games, you know.
Yeah, because you do have to. You play it and then sacrifice it. For 1. It is
1
free
mana.
though.
1 mana.
It's free, and it gives you 1 of any color, and is an artifact.
See, my gut is saying pretty much like the exact same thing I said about the last card. Which, considering my track record with these f***ing flowers so far, it hasn't been great.
So what are you thinking?
You know what? Just because I'm going the opposite of what I think. I think this card's dog ass.
This card's
Just like
cracked.
awful. This card is, again, restricted in Vintage. Is like a $20 common from the set it was printed in.
So there-
I mean, I want a record for what's worth. I was originally thinking this card was good. I just went the opposite of my gut.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's a snake.
And here's the final Lotus of the pile. And what if it was a guy?
Like, I mean, it's probably gonna die once your opponent turn takes over. Though I'm thinking in Hearthstone terms, and there's actually interaction in Magic the Gathering, unlike Hearthstone, which is a garbage game for idiots.
Because like,
me.
you can't attack like creatures can't directly attack another creature like in a
Yeah, yeah. I feel like there's just, I mean, you've shown me better options for ramping. And this one is specifically only in green too, which, I mean, that's not really a big deal, but the others can be played in most every deck. I don't know, it seems fine.
So this card's been printed into Standard twice, and it's been like the centerpiece of multiple decks.
It's
every
course
single
it
time
has.
it's been
Throwing out
around.
warping every time
Like,
it gets in play. All right.
so we got a buddy here. This is a little bit. I think this is the first multicolor card we've seen. So this thing
Yeah,
costs
green, blue, red.
3 mana, but of 3 distinct colors. And then
Which, as you know from Eternal, is a bit of a downside.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not later Eternal, but
yeah.
Yeah, and depending on the format in Magic, it also becomes vanishingly real. That's correct, Mega Man.
I'm looking at it and I see all these words on it that all have, except for the fire one, all have pretty big costs to them.
But cost you are guaranteed to be able to play if you played the Knuckle Blade fairly, for what it's worth.
Yeah. So,
Sure.
So how are you feeling on him, buddy?
My gut reaction says it's kind of mid.
Yeah, your gut reaction is your gut reaction is better than most of the Magic the Gathering communities.
So
Now, a different card that is also incredibly modular. Morphling.
I was also gonna say that has another one that has a lot of text.
Yup.
So 5 mana, untap Morphling. Morphling gains flying until the end of the turn. Morphling gains Shroud until the end of the turn.
Shroud
Morphling
being
gains-
specifically, so when we mentioned Hexproof being
Both
only
players.
opponents, Shroud is
Okay.
both. So you can't target it either, which sometimes is scary.
Yeah, I mean until. Okay, end of turn, end of your turn, so your opponent could still blow it up on their turn.
But you can activate it at any point. If your opponent attempts to blow it up with a spell, you can pay
Sure,
the 1
yeah,
blue
yeah,
mana,
yeah.
and if you have it, you can do that. So it's only that turn. Yes.
And also can gain flying until the end of the turn, and you can untap it. This
And-
card seems.
And it can gain +1, -1, or -1, +1.
Oh, I thought for some reason I thought that was +1/+1, but
Yeah. So you can give it power at the cost of toughness, or toughness at the cost of power.
Sure, yeah. I mean, 5 mana is expensive, and you are dumping more mana to play each of these abilities, but it's so easy to adapt this card to any potential situation you're in that it seems pretty strong. Yeah, it just seems so applicable in a ton of different situations. Like, you could pop the -1 attack to block something, and that would normally die too. You can use it to block flying units. You can use it to avoid it being destroyed. And of course, you can also just untap it by paying a mana. So you can actually do all the stuff I just said.
So
Yeah,
another
this
good
card-
thing. A good note is in Magic, most creatures you tap them to attack, and tapped
Yeah.
creatures can't block.
Right, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, this card seems great.
Yeah, this card was very much a centerpiece of blue decks at the time it was printed. Was a wildly strong card for what you said, the flexibility of this being able to answer basically any state.
Also,
in addition,
1 mana fuck you to anything that's not a full
Yeah.
board wipe
Yeah.
is incredibly good. Yeah.
anyway, here's a rhino.
Okay, so I do know for a fact I've heard of this card,
Oh,
which
what have you
could. And that's the thing. I don't remember what I've
Of
heard.
my friend Steve Rhino.
Steve.
So that could lead me towards
well, read
one
through it,
of
read
two
through it.
ways.
Yeah,
Take
a look.
figure it out. Yeah, just pretend you don't know and read the card.
I guess since it kind of was relevant to something else already
The
forgot the name
3-cost
of the card.
4/4, the Savage Knuckle
Yeah.
Blade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
How relevant were these? Was this faction? I guess.
So this is the same set as Savage Knuckleblade. Is probably the
So like it was a
best way to
set
put
where
it.
3 colors were, in general, were being pushed a little more aggressively. So it was more
Sure,
playable than average. Yeah.
yeah.
So just based on what I'm reading, I would say this card was pretty good. However, knowing that I have definitely heard about this card before, I'm gonna say it's Busto.
So
I'm gonna-
there were websites that were
I'm
made.
gonna post this link
Is
for a
it-
video from Ristic Studies called "The Menace: The Story of Siege Rhino."
Yeah. So there was a website that was like how long till siegerhinoband.com or something that was literally just a countdown until the second that rotated out of standard.
Yeah, it was like, yeah. So Siege Rhino was on the opposite side of Savage Knuckleblade, same set as Savage Knuckleblade, wildly powerful, wildly played.
Everyone saw Savage Knuckleblade and was like, that thing's crazy. It's so flexible. It's got modularity. It takes advantage of all the colors it's in. It's got all sorts of stuff. And Siege Rider, they're like, 4/5 for 4. It drains. Who gives a And then this motherfucker
Speaking of that
effects
set.
that hit your opponent for damage when they enter the battlefield, it's Vexing Devil. Here he is. It's Vexing Devil. That's right, chat.
Howdy.
Howdy.
When Vexing Devil enters the battlefield, any opponent may have it deal 4 damage to him or her. If player does, sacrifice Vexing Devil. And it's a 1 mana 4/3, huh?
Yeah.
That is correct.
So obviously the stats on this are insane.
Yeah, 4/3 for 1. That's
But
ludicrous.
just take the 4 damage. And then it goes away and your opponent spent their mana on their first turn to do nothing. This card's ass.
Nice call.
Good call, yeah.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
one
good
gets
call.
fought over a lot. Oh, this is like vintage playable still. Yeah.
You got called EOT FOF. You know, you lose.
I'm sorry, I just kind of laughed at the name Doom Whisperer.
Doom Whisperer.
Doom Whisperer, the man with so many limbs.
Got hands.
5 mana black 6/6 flying trapple. Pay 2 life, surveil 2. Look up to any of them in graveyard and the rest on top of your library in any order. Okay.
Good thing to know. So we've been talking about 1v1 Magic the Gathering. You have 20 life to start. In the 4-player format Commander, you do have 40 life to start, for what it's worth.
Oh, sure.
Yep. This is the first time where I think we've had like a repeatable life effect where that distinction would be super notable and worth mentioning.
Sure. And I'm just taking a guess because off of the general theme of each color, I have to assume black probably has like the most discard interaction like in Magic.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're gonna choose a color, black is the one that's gonna have the highest level of.
They have the most cards banned with the word graveyard in them, for sure.
As for Doom Whisperer here, I can't see how this isn't good. Like, it's got pretty solid stats, it's got flying, it's got trample, and sure, you pay 2 life, but life is, if I've learned anything from card games, life is a resource, and the only one that matters is the last one. So being able to pay 2 life to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and either pitch them if they're bad or interact with the graveyard in any way, or there's a bomb that you can draw guaranteed now. Yeah, I can't see how this card isn't good.
Yeah, so that's again what everyone really thought. Like there was so
God
much.
damn it!
Yeah, there was so much concern of like people were talking. It was funny that the card was named Doom Whisperer because people were legitimately like whispering doom sayings to each other that like this card was going to be the death of Commander. Because yeah, you put it on the field and you just shuffle through the top 60 cards of your deck to find whatever you need. Like how can it not be crazy? But Slyo?
This card ended up being like a fringe playable and constructed standard, like at best. A 5-drop at the especially at the time that this was printed. When it comes into play is a body that doesn't do something when you play it. You're asking to just get hit by a removal spell and then. Cool. Yes, you can pay life to stack the top of your deck, hit some graveyard order, but this is just too expensive for a body that's coming down and going, all right, gonna attack with my 6/6, when a lot of the cards you're playing at 5 mana are cards that are either like game-ending level threats or like some sort of engine.
Or like this feels enter the battlefield and like exile another target or something. Like they answer a problem and also are a body, right?
Yeah.
Little short side story. We're gonna talk about Infect for a second.
Creature deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and to players in the form of poison counters.
So a couple things that require explanation here. Poison counters are an alternate win condition, where if your opponent takes 10 poison counters, they die.
I'm just thinking back to the Universus stream where Slyo said alt win cons are bull.
If they're ever good, they're bull.
That's the thing that's killing it for me a little bit, I think. Because if you block this, like, with a, 4-power creature or whatever, it's all of a sudden, it's only a 3/3. And that suddenly becomes a whole lot worse.
It does kill their
than
creature, for what it's worth.
It does, yeah. But it doesn't. It doesn't have like. Yeah, it doesn't have like trample or anything. I mean, yeah, it'd probably be pretty strong if it had like trample, because I'd be able to get over stuff.
Get the poison in, yeah.
I don't see how this thing doesn't get chump blocked into death.
Yeah, so you're right. This card is like.
That's exactly the problem with this card.
Yeah, that is the number one problem. Is your opponent just puts anything in the way and it cannot get through, and it is a huge.
And it just
roadblock
loses.
For it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
This thing is saying, "I'm a huge threat. Please don't get hit."
Sorry, my JPEG is really dog. Sorry, really.
Hey, Ty, your elf is sick.
Had to dig deep for the elf. Is, they don't have a lot of high-res images of this bad boy.
Do I look like I know what an infect is?
All right. Now here's Blightsteel Colossus. Here's the biggest boy. You read that right. It costs 12.
Yeah, the fact that it costs 12.
12
mana. Makes me instantly think this card is dog. I guess the main question would just be, how easy is this to cheat it into play? Because if you can't cheat it into play, I can't see this being good at all. If you can, then it's probably pretty good.
So how do you feel about it overall? Staple, sinker, somewhere in between.
Admittedly, it is a little pretty KO I just said, but I'm gonna say it's awful.
So you're extremely on the right track. Wow, this is 12 mana. Wow, when would I cast this? Wow, what am I doing? I'm cheating this into play. I'm cheating this into play. I'm killing you because I'm cheating this into play.
Yeah, and the thing is, 11 Infect is that's one turn kill. Yeah, that's an instant kill. Yeah, so like if you can sneak this bad boy on the board and get it across the line in any way, shape, or form, you have finished the game of Magic the Gathering, and that is.
Yeah.
So you are correct in your assessment of this depends on the world and how much you can cheat it into play, because I don't want to pay 12 mana. And
yeah, you never play 12 mana for this thing.
If you're paying 12 mana, it's because you have infinite, right? Like,
look at the top X cards of your deck, where X is your devotion to blue. I'm assuming devotion to blue just means how many blue lands you have in play.
Okay,
it counts the blue pips on cards you control.
Oh,
so this card has 2 pips. It'll count those plus like whatever others you control.
So if you had like 3 of these in play, your devotion to blue would be 6.
I'm assuming her pips count towards it.
Correct.
When you play. Yeah. Okay. Thus, or it counts all cards included.
Yeah. So bare minimum, it's 2.
Yep.
Put up to 1 of them on the top of your library and the rest of them on your library in a random order. X is greater than equal. Okay. I'm beginning to see the theme, I think.
That it's alternate win cons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely would only want to play this late game, obviously, is the main.
Yep.
If you play this like on turn 2, you're going to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 on top, and the rest on bottom. That's what the card will do on
Yeah, and I'm assuming by that wording, King of the Cats. I'm assuming by that wording, the devotion doesn't count the pips on lands, if lands even have
lands
pips.
Don't have pips. Yeah, lands don't have it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's only on cards that have it in the top right corner.
So it would be creatures, enchantments, and all that junk.
Yep. Does it count with hybrid? It works the way you want with hybrid. We haven't had any hybrid cards, but there are cards that have like blue/black. Those count as both.
Blue is a control color, usually, right?
Yeah. They're the ones who have Ancestral Recall, for example. Like, being able to draw
Yeah.
cards is one of their iconic abilities. And, thanks for gifting a sub to Thassa's Oracle, even though it's not welcome in this house.
I think it's probably a top end for like a blue control deck. Though I don't think this is one you like rely on consistently, if that makes sense. So I think it.
So
Thassa's Oracle was a mistake. Is how I
Okay.
feel about this card.
let's-
So, in Magic the Gathering, a thing you can do is you can play Demonic Consultation and name Tom Hardy's Butthole, which is not a card
I
in
would
your
like
deck.
a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card, please.
One Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. That would be the most base call, I think. And yeah, you just put your entire deck in the graveyard and go, damn, failed to find. That's crazy. And then you just play Thassa's Oracle and win. But this one is Coalition Victory.
I'll be real, when I first read that, I thought it said Capitalism Victory.
It feels that way when this card is played against you.
So you win the game if you control land of each basic land type and a creature of each color. I mean, again, a lot of... Yeah.
There are lands that have 2 basic land types, and some now that have 3 basic land types.
Okay, that does change.
I will mention, because that
evaluation.
is like a really big deal, is there are things called triomes now that do have all 3 components. Like there'll be like an island, mountain, forest, yeah.
Does, if a creature has 3 colors, does it count?
That counts as 3 colors, correct. So if you have a 5-color creature on the field, a triome and 2 lands, that could be enough to proc Coalition.
I mean, it is very funny. And there are some situations where I could see it absolutely going off. It is also an 8-mana card, and you very much have to be building towards this to win, I feel. So I think it's maybe just below playable, is what I would say.
So I think that's fair. I think that's about as good of an evaluation as you can get, because that's basically where this is this card is banned in Commander, but it's not really banned because it's too good. It's banned because they wanted to put a signpost that they don't want this kind of win condition to be allowed in Commander.
Again, seems very funny if you get hit by this. I cannot imagine anyone getting hit by this.
So Battle of the Wits is like one of the most sigh-inducing cards in the planet. It's one of the few cards that your opponent walks up, puts their deck on the table, and before you ask, you just go, Battle of Wits.
So I've played this at I believe it was a modern PTQ. I went 5-1 and 2, 5-2 and 1, 5-2 and 1. And like I got to sit down at the table round 1. I pull up my deck box, I open it, I set it down. I pull up the second deck box. I pull out the deck, I set it on top. My opponent goes, I pull out the third deck box, put it on there, like, what is that? I was like, my deck. Eat it, what do you want to play, like Commander? I'm like, no, it's my deck. And then finally there's like a note of recognition. They're like, oh.
I've heard about this. Yeah, that's the
know
moment
what's
of,
doing.
oh, this.
So exile top card of your library. You may cast that card. If you don't, Chandra Torch of Defiance deals 2 damage to each opponent. It's 1, add 2 red. Chandra Torch of Defiance deals 4 damage to target creature. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to any target.
And you can activate Planeswalker as soon as you play them. So you could spend 4 mana, put Chandra on the table, and then immediately do a -3 and deal 4 damage to a creature, and then she would just be on the board with 1, for example. Yeah.
Is there a way to add loyalty points outside of the owns
plus abilities?
Planeswalkers?
Rarely,
Yeah.
but rarely.
Rarely.
Almost never relevantly, for the most part.
Okay. This card seems... If your plan is effectively, you know, like base hunter, basically, and to borrow Hearthstone, I can only imagine this being very strong in that type of deck. Now, I don't know if that type of deck is historically very strong.
Burn is the great check that keeps the world in balance, yes. Burn is the thing that will always... Burn aggro always has to be at least pretty good, or else Magic is in a bad spot, is kind of how it's been historically.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, yeah, I'm gonna say this card seems very strong. It seems like I can't see a reason why you wouldn't include her in a burn aggro deck.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd honestly say even a little higher than that. Chandra was playable even outside of just like a flat burn deck, because you could play Chandra as like a control piece that allowed you to draw a second card or kill creatures. The flexibility on Chandra really gave you a lot of power. But so yes, quite strong.
All right, and then final card I have for you to evaluate is another Planeswalker, because Planeswalkers are like pretty important and pretty key to the game nowadays. They didn't exist until, you know, comparatively very recently. But yeah, this is Oko Thief of Crowns.
Weirdly enough, Planeswalkers have existed for like longer than they haven't.
I'm gonna throw up, Slyo.
So 3 mana, 1 green, 1 blue. Create a food token.
So a food token is you can tap it, sacrifice it, and gain 3 life?
You pay 2 mana, sack it, gain 3 life. It's a little artifact that sits in play that you can use to gain 3 life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's important, because I forget tokens and counters are
A token is like an
a card.
A token is basically like a card that is not a card. Like it is a thing that can exist and sit on the field.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is important to know what food is for like evaluating this.
Yeah, so like food is like pay 2, gain 3 life. Yeah, not the most incredible thing, but it's because read the next line.
Yeah.
Target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk creature with a base power and toughness 3/3.
So basically you can make a food and then you can turn your food next turn into a 3/3, yeah.
Sure.
And then last line.
Exchange control of target artifact or creature you control, and target creature an opponent controls. Sorry, the wording on this is a bit weird to me. Yeah. Exchange control of target creature you control and target. Oh, okay, I see. The phrase "target creature" threw me in.
Yeah, it's basically you pick something of your opponents, you pick something of yours, and you swap them as long as it's something that's like power 3 or less, which is, you know, kind of small, on the smaller side.
Yeah. How many cards are there that, like... I mean, I guess I shouldn't... I've seen cards that do it. Cards that sit on the board and have an impact. How many of them are there?
Like enchantments and artifacts? You get a pretty good amount of those.
I was thinking of the Lotus Cobra or whatever it's called.
Oh, like creatures with passive abilities? Yeah, there's like there's a pretty good amount of those, yeah. And like you'll be playing a lot of those too.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the plan here is you create a food token, you turn it into an elk, and then you give the elk...
Well, you could even just give them the food token. The food token counts as an artifact.
True.
So you can just give them the food token, which is like, pretty good.
But you can like, so you can make a food and then give it, or you can make something of theirs into an elk and now it's at 3 or less, and so you can swap, or different things like that. There are a couple different ways that Oko has.
It does. Yeah, it loses all abilities, so you can.
So.
This is basically like a polymorph, basically once per turn on your opponent's creatures if you play it that way.
Yeah, they'll like transform them into elk instead of sheep.
Yeah. My first instinct says this is a very good control card. Because being able to turn any of your opponent's creatures or artifacts into effectively just blank seems very strong. The food token seems kind of whatever. I mean, it does give you health, which is probably relevant in Control. And I could see the final one being useful in certain situations, but it's probably
Like a little clunky.
not what you're.
To get it to
Yeah, it's
go
probably
off.
not what you're mainly playing Oko for.
So you're thinking like pretty all right, like pretty solid, strong.
Yeah, I think he found his way into probably a couple blue-green control decks.
Okay. Oko is quite possibly in the top 5 strongest cards ever printed in Magic the Gathering.
Alright.
I'd put
I can
Oko
see
as,
it, yeah.
I'd put Oko as best planes as like you can
Planeswalker.
easily make an argument for as Planeswalker.
Yeah. So
Oko,
you
Oko Thief of
correctly
Crowns.
identified the thing that the Magic team kind of missed and didn't properly evaluate, which is spot polymorph every single turn.
Yeah, that's
is
just nuts.
crazy. And the fact is, it's a plus on the spot polymorph. So you
Yeah.
play Oko. He spot
And gains
polymorphs
health.
the thing that will kill it and then gains health, so it becomes even. Yeah, so like you put Oko down, get rid of the one thing that could possibly deal with Oko, and then next turn your opponent plays something that's like, okay, well this will deal
And
with elk.
And if your opponent, if your opponent isn't playing things that you can turn into elk, you can just do the normal loop of make a food token, make a 3/3, make a food token, make a 3/3, and then at that point you have like a 9 loyalty Oko who can't die because
Yeah.
Oko's loyalty is quite
And
outrageous.
it would start being faster to just kill you instead of trying to kill the fucking Oko. Yeah, like
The Oko was initially very initially like I would say like underrated because this card was spoiled before we knew what a food token was. So like nobody knew how to evaluate that part of it. But it became very clear that Oko was playable in every green-blue deck, which became every deck in Standard because that was all you played because the best cards to counter Oko were in green and blue. There was like a blue counter spell that countered a blue card. So yeah, Oko banned in like basically every format.
all right, well, Kobuddy, you did honestly way better than I expected. Magic's a really hard game, and we went out of our way to pick some tricky ones that like straight up the people who are paid full-time for their job to design Magic cards misevaluated. So the fact that you were on the ball for some of those is downright incredible. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for
I'm so sick of Lotus.